Hey guys, Chomsky here. Just got done watching Brent Herder's video of the irrational loves that he has. Um, highly, highly awesome video. I just wanted to toss in my seven champs that I really love. Um, Irrationally, the ones that I it's partly nostalgic and partly just they're just cool to use every so often. I just want to go through them. Let's go bottom to the top here. I'm gonna go Aox first. Excuse me. Dude's just gnarly. Lizardman just getting some lovin' on this one. His kit, even without relics, still pretty cool. He's putting out there a very weak poison. It's a 30% chance to place a big poison for 2 turns. So this could be kind of bad because we only have 10 debuffs that could be put on an enemy. But this is kind of sneaky because even when you're not expecting it, it could go through, and that's not bad. He's healing, like that's we need that for faction wars. And Aox was such a good champ after I beat after I beat faction wars that it just made things so much quicker. I didn't have to manual it, I just let him go nuts, and it was pretty sweet. Uh, Again, faction war based, but additionally, we're talking about city. We're talking about, again, a big stretch here, a wave content if you don't have anybody better. Or actually, I mean, this could actually work in Hydra too. If you need somebody to decrease attack, like it's it's not a bad one. Um, in Hydra, it's not going to be decreasing any turn meter, but you know we're really just going for that decrease attack. Like it comes in handy. I know that there's others that are better, but just in case, he's not bad. um and then this increase of duration, clan boss, that's not bad. And I have him an emergency heal, and it's just the shield, in which I had a shield set on him at one point. I need to change that because that's not the case now. Um, I have him in regeneration and perception. Just crank out his accuracy, and then honestly, uh, longevity, and you're set. Very basic, um, but still works for me. I still like him. He helped me out in Amius. I forget, like 2 or 3 rotations ago. Not bad, and he's not even fully mastered. What are you doing, Chomsky? Um, but yeah, I think I still dig him. Even if my build and my stuff is just out of whack, it's still good. Another reasonable champ is Lydia. Um, Once you get Lydia, she's just gonna be such a hard carry everywhere. I just messing around with this. Um, but really, the big thing is that she's decreasing defense, putting out there a weekend, and then she's also helping you out with a strengthen and increased speed. That is so, so good. That strengthen is doing a damage mitigation. It's also doing a damage modifier. That is just so good. The A1 tossing out there a fear. Okay, sweet. And then there's also that crowd control element that she does of doing an attack. So really good for Hydra. I know that when I first started playing, Lydia in Arena was kind of the standard, and she just sucked, man. Going up against her really sucked. Um, the passive that she has of denying enemy revives, that that sucked to go against. Um, when I got my Raglan, I kept on busting her out everywhere because I'm like, oh yeah, she's so good. Yeah, going up against Lydia, just you had to tiptoe, and it was just really not cool. I still use my Lydia and Chimera, um, Chimera, Chimera, whatever, uh, because the block buffs, block active skills, as well as the fear. So like, and this decreased defense and weekend, that is just huge. Still use her, still love her. Um, yeah, once you get her, you know. Uh, no surprises ahead here. Uh, I'm gonna toss out here Bellator. Um, it's not that he is like super paramount to any composition. It's just a fun champ to use every so often. I use him a lot in City. Just one of those champs just to have. And I was recently reminded of him by another person who had, shot me a message in Discord. The stats are not that ridiculous. We're talking about 100 HP, you know, 3,400 defense, like 217 speed. You know, I don't build up my champs with resistance, so that's a deficiency. And accuracy, meh. But I have him in Relentless, and the reason why I have him in Relentless is I want I want to cycle through his turn meters as quickly as I can. So I want to go through that. Uh, he attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of decreasing the cooldown of a random skill on an ally. Sweet. I want this to keep on going. I want that to kick through. Um, Sneaky, I have no control over it, so I don't know when it's gonna go. But when it does, hey, that's pretty awesome. Uh, that I enjoy those unique champs that could do awesome things. This one as an AoE, I don't care. I'm not here for damage. I really just want to use you as support. He's placing an increased attack and an increased defense. Sweet. There's not many that do that. And he's also healing by 20% of his max HP, and he's HP based. Like, dude, so 100,000, that's 20,000 HP. That's not life altering or whatever, but it's definitely gonna move the needle. We're talking about a hit, and that's pretty awesome. He's also reviving 50 and 50, and then he's placing a shield on him. Okay, that's not bad. The 50 and 50, all right. The shield, again, 20% of his max HP. If I get to revive anyone and then it goes through and the relentless procs going through Slayer's Roar, like another 20% HP, 20,000 in this case, that's 40,000. That's not bad. I don't have a blessing on him. I don't really use him that much. You know, I, I'll be the first one. I'm gonna point the thumb. You know, I'm not necessarily the biggest hypocrite, but I am a hypocrite. I enjoy using them, really just for these two buffs, man. Um, he's a 2 star. Eh, I getting a blessing on him is not quintessential, so I'm okay with that. Speaking of blessing, I do want to talk about. I think Fortis was one of my first 6 star blessings I ever got. And I used the shit out of this guy in Doom Tower. Like, he was one of my hard carries. I had him and Lydia, and I was like, I thought I was, you know, doing. I thought I was gonna plow through everything, to which I kind of did. Um, I have him in Swift Parry. He's a defense dude. We're talking about like 6,000 defense here. You know, he's gone through a few incarnations, but getting him a pretty decent speed is the way you want to go. Have him in a boatload of crit damage, not so much crit rate, and we're gonna talk about that with the skills. Decent HP. I ideally I want 70,000, but again, I've moved around his stuff because I really wasn't using him that much. Now with Fabian, I was messing around with a Fortis, a Fabian, a Noble, as well as a Salad build, like just a team comp there. Um, didn't really work out as well as I wanted it, but that's something for me to revisit. But lo and behold, the meme dude, even before his rework, I still thought he was rad. Um, One of the things I really like doing is having fear, especially in arena. But talk about progress in a lot of things. Um, Doom Tower, City, Faction Wars. If you're struggling with it and you have Fortis, he's going to be really really good. Um, you know, Getting him going with another fear is huge. Um, the A1 is always going to be critical if the dude is under fear or true fear. Again, based on defense, so he's going to be tanky. Um, so that's why I don't have a lot of crit rate on him, and that's fine. Attacks all enemies, busts out a true fear, so basically an upgrade if your enemies have fear, which is neat. I dig that. Getting an upgrade on a debuff, that doesn't happen too often here in Raid. Um, so getting that, awesome, cool. Uh, Here is basically the bread and butter. Uh, in AOE, he's basically gonna do a crit if the enemies are under fear or true fear, as well as ignoring 30% of their defense. So thinking savage, thinking relentless, just getting him going. He did get buffed with the damage of this, and I think that's cool. Uh, was it needed? Yeah. Was it okay without it? Yeah. I mean, honestly, getting damage out of them is great, but for me, just messing around with the whole fear component and that it being a chaos agent was just what I really, really wanted. Um, so yeah, honestly, just no crit rate, just busting out as much crit damage as I could. That's why I have him in Swift Parry, which may seem redundant because his passive is that he gets to stay alive and then he heals himself, but it depletes his turn meter. So there's a whole lot of juggling here that has to happen. Like it'd be really rad if I'm getting a hit after, I take a turn and my turn meter is really low. I get I get hit almost fatally. I then basically go down to 1 HP, and then I get healed again when my turn meter goes. Like I think that's rad. Um, Getting passives are just super huge, and having this, I right there you got me. Like think of Leorius, um, think of Siegfried, uh, that type of like, oh shit, I'm gonna die. Oh, oh no no no, that mechanism is so rad. Again, he's quirky, he's fun, I dig it, but he also has this ability that once that triggers, he's also putting fear out there on everybody. So it goes back to potentially, doing his A3 and doing a boatload of damage. Like, okay, because again, fear, it's the potential that you lose a turn, and it may not be the greatest debuff out there, but it's definitely a very annoying one. Uh, you know, I don't really use him all that much. I mean, it's not really ascended and all that fun stuff, but it's still fun. I'll bust him out in arena from time to time. Live arena, I've been messing around with the Void team, and I've been using him a little bit, but he's not in the greatest PvP stuff, so that's why I've been avoiding it. But still a fun champ. Not necessarily a meme anymore, but he's difficult to work with because he's not really seen too often. Um, because of fear. Like we have a whole lot of people that could block debuffs as well as cleanse. So he's not high on that priority, but he's definitely high on the fun scale for me. I got three more. Um, Mishinaki, I think, is a boatload of fun, and Hydra, he's still being used. on my teams. I again, not the best built, just because to be honest, I like to have all my champs built, so I could plug and play. But really, he's just a Hydra specific champ for me now. Um, Still solid, still fun. Um, has this ability just to place an HP burn on an A1. That's rad. Going to 60% chance. Okay. Decreasing attack and as a debuff is always something I'm looking forward to. I want that. But he's also potentially placing a decreased attack on dudes that are under Hex. And wait for it, we're gonna have Hex out there because it's on his A3. In addition to that, we also have the ability to remove all buffs from each target. We're talking about a total cleanse. And then you get a Hex on you, and potentially he used to be in Relentless because I wanted him to go again to get this decreased defense and decreased attack on a hexed Hydra head. I think that's rad. I that build up once that goes, sweet. He can be brought in arena too? Um, kind of okay. Not really utilized so much that I see, but if you have them, use them. And then he's got this built in passive of him joining attacks. That's rad. Um, him and Cardiel randomly doing that, like it could throw things off a little bit. Thinking about Chimera, um, chime in with that. But it's also cool. It's another hit. It's another attack. It's more damage that you weren't necessarily planning. I think that's cool. And he's got the ability to place that HP burn. Mm, 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 mm. Love it, love it. I'm gonna go with Ray next. Um, Super old champ. One of those champs that was just like, all right, glass cannon, really kind of weak, but packs a huge punch. Like, yeah, she's +4, but even when I had her at plus nothing because empowerment wasn't around, she still did a lot of work for me. Um, I, I don't have her that fast. I have her at a decent speed. I mean, we're talking about 286. Some decent attack. Like, okay, not even busting out 6400. Um, the HP is a little bit high because honestly, she's in there to do one thing, and that one thing is just to nuke. That's it. So crit capping her, getting crit damage, and then a decent accuracy, and then the resistance just came around. Um, all of her stuff is A1 or is AoEs. So her A1 has a 30% chance of placing decreased defense. As you can see, I don't have her booked. The only reason why I don't have her booked is because I want her just to attack. I don't care about the damage or the debuff chances. She was only in there to do that first turn or even second turn AoE. That's all I care about. Um, and even like this, boatload of damage. Uh, Having her speed tuned was essential because in the A2, if my A3 didn't kill, the A2 was going to do a lot of damage because she's doing half more damage against targets under debuffs. Um, I had her with Cardiel a lot, and sometimes she'd put out the decreased defense, and obviously it would go up if I had her booked, but I didn't see a point to book her when unbooked, she's doing a boatload of damage. So, all right, getting an ally attacker with and busting this out, awesome, cool. Getting her with Lydia, eh, like to have decreased defense out there already, do an A2, 50% more damage, sweet. And then the A3, again, another AoE. Removing all buffs, so a cleanse, and then a 50% chance to do freeze. Yeah, the skill cooldown sucks. It's 6 turns fully booked, but really, you're not waiting that long. Like, you're using her just to go nuts, go AoE, leave a wake of dead bodies there, and you're set. You know, in and out. That specialist. She was one of my first AoE nukers that I could think of that I had used in arena a lot. And you know, the freeze was cool too because if she's not killing them, she's definitely gonna freeze them. You know, and like I shouldn't say definitely because there's a 50% chance. Uh, there's a high likelihood that they would be frozen. Um, just a lot of fun to use, you know, and really that's the name of the game here. And then lastly, it's Wolfheart. Um, when I first got him, I was disappointed. I didn't. I was like, this guy kind of sucks. I drank the Kool Aid. I listened to what other people said, and I I, I was wrong. I, I I was like, okay, yeah, I got him, and I got him. I might as well use him, and I built him out. You know, we got a weird setup here, but going for the stats more than anything else. Um, yeah, just kind of cool. He does. I have it with Molten Death Bell, because he does have the potential to place freeze. So have that. Still kind of clunky. He's not necessarily a mythical that's gonna like wow you right away, but later on, he's really a good support dude. With damage components there, a solid B to B minus. Um, not everyone's gonna be a newt. Not everybody's gonna be a Siegfried or an Ace, but this guy could really work wonders for you if you get him. Attacking one enemy 2 times, placing a freeze. All right. If that freeze isn't there, he's gonna hit again. So that's a potential 4 turn. So we're thinking about Fire Knight. You know, you could build him up with 0 accuracy. You know, if that's something you want, but we'll get there. Potential 4 hitter and an A1. That's okay. I'll take that. Placing a block debuff buff on all allies as well as increased speed. Sweet. Decreasing the cooldown of all ally skills. I mean, if you don't have a Yumeko, you don't have a Renegade, like, that's pretty cool to get this. And it's a 3 turn, so there's definitely some cycling that can be done over there. The way that I have used him is I open up with the A3, attacking enemies, placing a freeze debuff on everybody, places a 30% decreased speed. Okay, sweet. Grants an extra turn. So I'm going out there, like I'll have my Galathar out there just to do a wipe to clean him up, or an Odin, just to swipe around, you know, strip, and then him coming in, placing a freeze, extra turn. Um, like let me get to that in a second. Doing that A3, and then I'm going to his A2. I'm attacking enemies, so it's another AoE. Places an extra hit on those under freeze. Fantastic. It also decreases their max HP, so thinking about like Taurus or anybody like that, there you go. It's also decreasing their turn meter. So right away, they're frozen, as well as all their turn meters down by a quarter. You know, just basically solidifying, that you're going to get some more hits on them. And yeah, because they're frozen, they could take a little bit more, hits because, there's that damage modifier of like because they're frozen, they only get like a discount of damage of like 15% or whatever. But more importantly, I'm talking about turn meter. That gets us going and set up for more. But I'm ahead of myself. Um, so I freeze them. I do the A2. I want to get more hits on them. And then if, I have them in Relentless, in case that extra turn procs, I'm going A3. He's attacking one enemy. He's ignoring defense. ignoring 100% of defense if they're still frozen. And then if they are frozen and I kill them, there's a block revive right there. So thinking about Wukong, thinking about other damage dealers like a Jorgid, that are kind of like weak, that are just there to do damage. Thinking about a Ray, you know, block that revive so they don't come back. Uh, and then he's always counterattacking with this, which sounds good on paper, but this is his second form. If this was on his first form, this is a this is a great counter to Armand's. Um, but since it's on the second form, you need to go faster than Armand's, or at least have him be the recipient of more speed. And that's kind of difficult sometimes. And he's basically just doing his A1. Eh, you know, attacks attacks one enemy. If this attack kills an enemy, it resets a cooldown of one of this dude's random skills. All right, sounds good, but it doesn't really pack that much of a punch. So, there he's a fun champ to mess around with. And let me go back to the passive on this one. Whenever this champion receives a debuff from an enemy, it has a chance to place a freeze on that enemy. So kind of like the Torment passive. Again, if this could be switched, that would be awesome. And I don't want to say broken, but it's up there. Definitely a weird. It's kind of like that. Like Androck, where the first form, if it had that passive, be hella awesome. Too awesome for his good, you know. And I think that's what this is. Um, Fun champ. I had a freeze team. I had him with my Gizmac, just for him with Tormin, Gizmac, and then who else I have? I think I had my Volcanos in there just for 2 HP burns as well as 2 freezes, and that was just fun. For the whole point of getting Torment to do a machine gun element of his A1. Um, just a fun team champ to be brought in there. And yeah, I mean, he still sucks because he's kind of clunky. You need HP, and he's in this form that's based on attack, and really to have HP and attack on a mythical, they kind of run counter to it. So I really just stay in his second form because it's based on HP, and he's at 88,000. That's not. It still packs a punch, and he's still level 50. I'm not all the way up there. I'm slowly taking my time because he's not a high priority, but still a lot of fun. Um, Tosses in just some weird mechanics there, and I think that's what appeals to me because hey, we need to have fun in this game. Let's not be so serious. Let's have, you know, let's break the meta in a way. Tired of seeing the same champs, so utilize what you have. But yeah, that's my response to Brent Catherder. I'm tossing his video uh, as a link down below in my description. Please watch that. Brent is just super awesome and super knowledgeable. I if you know, you know. Um, but yeah, he's a super rad dude, and I just enjoy talking about some champs. So thank you for making it this far. Um, Geez, almost a half hour. I wanted this to be 10 minutes. But yeah, I really enjoy talking about these champs and others. If you're so intrigued, like and subscribe. And then find me on Twitch, Noman My Chomsky. All right. See you soon. Take care.